Hi, this is John Okora. Welcome to this week's Auspicious Agile video blog. We're taking a look at the State of Agile 2020 today based on the annual VersionOne Collabnet State of Agile survey and taking a look at that and some of the changes. One thing that we know is that there's been a real increase in demand for Agile and digital, and that is due to people working remotely in digital, remote teams having to do these types of development, and of course due to 19. So let's get into what's happening this year. Scrum and Safe, again, are reigning supreme as far as regular Agile team level and scaling methods. 75% of organizations are using Scrum in some form, and it dominates, with Kanban coming in a distant second. And we get 35% of organizations that are using SAFe, or Scaled Agile Framework, for Agile Scaling, over there to the right, up from 30% last year. If we add some of these reporting others, and you'll see that a little bit later, in Agile Scaling, then the number for Scaled Agile is probably much higher. So a lot of people white label or will use the concepts in Scaled Agile, but they won't call it that. So we can see here that Scrum's at 58%. We got another 10% using Scrumban, 8% Scrum XP Hybrid, and then you can also see about another 7% on Kanban there. And also for SAFe, and you look at the other category we talked about, that percentage, we could easily be over 50% of organizations are using some variant of Scaled Agile Framework in reality. So definitely a lot of demand on that side. Now, let's take a look at the challenges. One of the biggest challenges, of course, is culture in the organization for adapting Agile. So one of the challenges is sometimes hard to overcome is people being used to working in more of a traditional way with fixed projects, fixed timelines, the kind of metrics they use. So that culture is a challenge as always. Now, let's take a look here at the location of organizations that responded this year, and we can see that a lot more out of America. In fact, less than 50% were in America, and you see in Africa, developing markets, South America, Asia, quite a considerable number of respondents in those markets. So that's good. We're starting to see a lot more work in the global growth markets and developing world for Agile, which is a good thing as well. And we can take a look here and see that some of the methods and techniques in Agile that are used, not really a lot of surprises here. We have our daily stand-ups, retrospectives, sprint iteration planning, sprint iteration reviews, and short iterations. So if you're using Scrum, you're probably using most, if not all of these in your environment. Also for outsourcing, 50% of organizations say they're using Agile in outsourcing, and that is increasing. We're seeing more organizations trying to use Agile for their outsourcing. It can be a challenge sometimes because it's not always necessarily easy to be able to use an Agile method with a vendor. And 42% say they plan to increase the use of Agile with outsourced projects. So if you're working cloud native, you're working on a SaaS platform, software as a service, etc. That's going to be pretty natural for you to use Agile, but it looks like a lot of organizations are starting to try to use that for a lot of outsourcing engagements as well. So now, challenges experienced when we're adopting Agile and scaling. Let's take a look at some of the challenges organizations are finding themselves facing. First off, of course, when we look at these challenges, we have general organization resistance to change. This is a big one, right? And there's kind of that, people are like, there's nothing we need to do. Now, I will say that while we're dealing with COVID at this point, that is forcing a lot of organizations to change. Not enough leadership participation. Leadership is always key. We always talk about that here in the blogs. Inconsistent process and practices across teams. So if you're scaling and you have one team that's using less, one team using SAFe, one team using Scrum and Scrums or Spotify, maybe a little more difficult instead of having a consistent method across. Organizational culture at odds with the Agile values. So again, we talked about maybe command and control leadership instead of servant leadership, or kind of the wrong metrics. Also, inadequate management support and sponsorship are a challenge. So we need, your project management office, your PMO, your middle management tier, all to really be supporting and sponsoring, as well as executives and leaders. You can see the rest of the challenges here below. So things like insufficient training, education, regulatory compliance, and others. And you can look at those in the VersionOne Collabnet State of Agile survey as well. Now let's go on and let's take a look at tools, all right? So tools is always a question. I think the biggest one here in this little word map that represents the responses is no surprise. Jira, as always, is the kind of the top tool. It's got really good take-up. Excel, which I guess in some ways puzzles me, but not really, is next biggest use. Now, really, Excel is not great for dynamic tracking of Agile and Agile project management or Agile product management. However, it is easy to access and easy to use, so I understand why it's there and why it's big that way. MS Project, definitely not designed for Agile engagements. Microsoft TFS, which is now actually Azure DevOps, that was designed for use with Agile. You got Google Docs, so people using that kind of as a dynamic tracking and spreadsheet. I've used that before. It's okay, not necessarily designed for Agile per se. And you can see some of the other tools there like VersionOne as well. So now let's look at DevOps initiatives. For DevOps initiatives, what we're seeing is that well over basically 3/4 of organizations are either in the midst of or planning to use DevOps in their organizations. So overwhelming amount. And also the importance of DevOps is very important to organizations. So we can see that's, almost 70% there who are saying it's important or very important, plus another 20% saying somewhat important. So a lot of organizations are focused on DevOps. Now, as you know, you follow our blogs, you know that I advocate very much. It's very important to use Agile and DevOps together. Don't have separate silos for Agile, separate silo for DevOps. Put them together and get the maximum benefit from your initiatives in digital where you use Agile, DevOps, Agile Scaling all together. So you can see in Scaled Agile Framework there to the right again, and we can see that DevOps is actually incorporated inside. So it's actually incorporated in the framework. So you have the continuous delivery pipeline for DevOps. This is also the case for other scaling approaches as well. I think like Disciplined Agile and others also do this. But what you can see is right there in the middle of the Scaled Agile framework, in the Agile product delivery, you can see DevOps and continuous delivery pipeline. So that is very key. So now, thank you so much, as always, for joining for this week's Auspicious Agile video blog. You can support us on Patreon, Amazon, and with cryptocurrency, as well as using the Brave browser to view the blogs. And that also is another way you can support us. Brave is a great browser for privacy, by the way. Subscribe, like, and share, whether it be on YouTube or your favorite social media platform where you're viewing this. As always, thanks to VectEasy for at least for some of the recent videos and images we've used in the the images there. And as always, stay agile, and thank you so much for listening.